Hello, I'm Lisa Trail with Murfreesboro City Schools. Thank you for joining us today for further review. Today I have two guests with me, Leah Bart, who is our coordinator of gifted services with Murfreesboro City Schools, and Christy Mall, a third grade teacher at Discovery School. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Christy, congratulations is in order to you. You have just received quite an honor. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Oh, yes. I was very honored. A couple of weeks ago at the Tennessee Association for the Gifted Conference, I was awarded the Tennessee Gifted Teacher of the Year. And that was absolutely not expected, but such a wonderful, wonderful surprise. Tennessee Association for the Gifted is a group that helps advocate for gifted needs and gifted services for children, and also provides a resource for teachers across the state. So to earn that is just the pinnacle of my career.
Well, congratulations to you. That is an awesome thing, and I know it was a surprise to you.
Yes.
So what a great surprise to get at a conference among your peers.
Right.
So, and speaking of peers, you have peers across our district. Leah, you work with great teachers like Christy on a daily basis. So can you kind of describe to us the gifted services across not only at Discovery School, but across our district?
For the past year and a half, we've been working really hard to provide peer groups for our gifted students. They challenge each other and they help each other flourish with that peer grouping. We're also giving or providing additional training for teachers. We need to provide more, and we're working on it. We have two actually in the next week, one this week and one early next week, to help provide them with support for curriculum choices or changes to the curriculum or thinking models to help push thinking and help rigor and complexity to occur in the classrooms. So that's what we're working on right now.
And I know you've come a long way in the past year and a half, and have really concentrated on that. Christy's been with the district for years and works with people like Ms. Burt and several others that have that certificate in gifted services. So it's nice to see it across the district now. Can you kind of describe to me, either of you ladies, I'll give it to either one who wants to, how do you recognize a high-achieving child or a gifted child?
I think that is kind of a scary question to answer, because in the world of gifted and high-achieving students, they are all so different. But we have to be careful not to look at typical characteristics alone, because then we miss the students that might not be exhibiting all those characteristics but really need the identification to flourish. But some of the ones that you might see, they might ask a lot of questions, very curious. They get concepts or understand things quickly with few repetitions. They can be witty. They can get the sense of humor of adults. Sometimes you can identify them because of their emotion, their extra sensitivity, or they're emotional. They take things at a deeper level. So they might be upset at a level 10 when it was like a level 2. It should have just made you a little grumpy, not sent you into where you want to hurt somebody, the sensitivity. So also they have a strong sense of justice. What's fair, what's right. They might take on the world's concern, like world hunger might disturb them enough where they can't sleep at night, or they just get really focused on that. And perfectionism is one. But again, there can be a lot of different characteristics.
That's one of the dangers is there are a lot of children in minority populations that are underserved. And there are a lot of groups that are trying to look at how we can identify that. Because in a lot of instances, if a child isn't challenged appropriately, then they will become an underachiever. And if left alone on their own, that happens to about 70% of the children. So you really have to be able to identify that there's something unusual about this child, and then find out what you can do for them that's going to be an individualized plan to help them. Because just because they're gifted doesn't mean that they're strong in every area. You can be asynchronously developed, which means you might be wonderful at math and then you're not as great at language, but you may be profoundly gifted in the math. So that's one of those things that we have to look at. And then a second thing is a new thing that's come out just in the last few years is twice exceptional. So it is not unusual to have a gifted child who is also ADHD. They can be autistic. They can have ADD or a whole myriad of
Dyslexia.
Yeah, dyslexia, a whole myriad of things that can go along with that. And so we're really having to look at pulling apart that identification and look at specifically what their needs are.
And sometimes when you have that, the child appears average because they have the intellect ability to compensate for their deficit. So it kind of hides it and makes it a little hard to find.
And it's also hard to identify girls because girls have a tendency to try to blend in and they don't want to stand out. And sometimes they're one of the more difficult groups to identify. Because with boys, they're more outspoken about what they can do, but girls have a tendency to try to be a part of the group and they don't want to stand out or be separate from them.
So if I'm a parent at home and I know my child is either a high achiever or a gifted child, what should I be doing in the home environment to help them succeed, to help the teacher succeed, the whole class succeed?
Well, I think that one of the things that you need to do is follow their passions. Gifted children will have something that they're just very, very interested in, and they'll kind of fall down the rabbit hole, if you will, about that topic. Let them pursue that, let them grow in that, but at the same point, also find a way to work with them to balance out areas that they may want to avoid because they love computers, they love programming, but they also have to learn to write well and things like that. And so if you work with the teacher can use things that they're interested in as a sort of incentive for them, but at the same point help them be a little more rounded so that they're not so focused in one area that they don't have the skills that they need across the board to be successful. And I think that's one of the most important things you can remember. And also, I have a lot of parents that will say, you know, I know that my child is doing this type of behavior or I'm seeing this and I'm starting to research. And when they do that, they find out that actually a lot of those behaviors are very normal. And I think parents sometimes just need to hear that that is a typical behavior for gifted children. And if you work with the teacher and work together, then you can make that successful. But there are a lot of wonderful resources, especially with the internet, that you can go to now to find out, is perfectionism normal for a gifted kid? How do I deal with perfectionism? How do I deal with if they're very hyper-emotional? Because sometimes those are things that children struggle with, and the parents often have struggled with the same issues when they're children, but they just didn't know how to address that. So things like that are a wonderful resource.
If they've started out in Murfreesboro City Schools and they want to know more about the gifted services, do they call you, Leah? Is that the way to start? Do they talk to their teacher to begin with? How do you say, I think my child needs a little bit more of a push? Or
The best avenue would probably be to start with the classroom teacher, and it's not wrong to email the administration or me to find out who to contact, but the classroom teacher should know how to reach out for additional steps.
Okay.
Or questions.
So if a child is in a traditional class and they're being pulled out for gifted services or high achieving as a gifted child, what does that look like?
We utilize individualized education plans, which in the state of Tennessee, gifted falls under special education because gifted can enable or disable you because of the intensities or the savant, the profoundly gifted. So what we do is we look at how the child is performing, how the child is feeling, because they can internalize. Then we use that to design an educational plan that is for that specific child so that we can see growth in the areas of strength. Sometimes it's, again, going to what Christy said, sometimes the IEP is what it's called, is directed for their passion because they fall out of love with learning. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure that they maintain their love for learning and that they follow their questions and their curiosity and that they become a lifelong learner. As a matter of fact, and I was thinking this when you asked about the parents, sometimes it's hard to see them fail or to be challenged. And that is so important. And sometimes even when we're writing the individualized plan, it seems like this is too much. But we have to find that appropriate challenge for them. Because if they never have to face challenge now, when they get to college or when they're on their own outside of the loving support of the family, then they don't know how to deal with it, or they don't know what challenge feels or looks like. So it's not that you want them to fail, but we have to be strong as parents to allow that to happen. They need to struggle, the appropriate struggle, so that they know how to push their own thinking and continue to learn.
And that's typical for any child. They have to learn
Absolutely.
how to succeed and fail as well. So I'm going to change the subject really quick, and we want to talk about the foundation. All three of us just came from a wonderful ceremony where the City Schools Foundation gave $49,000 to the teachers of this city school district. Not directly to the teachers, but to the schools for grants. Both of you received grants tonight. Christy, I know you received two for your individual classroom, and Leah, you received one for a district grant. So tell me, what are you going to do with these grant dollars? Describe your grant and what the intent is.
Well, for my grants, I wrote one that was engineering-based, and that's one of the things that is really focused on now with our new standards. But it's difficult sometimes to build true engineering into a classroom. And so my grant was for supplies so that kids will be able to build and engineer projects that I'm planning on incorporating. So we can build three-dimensional shapes and then study the area. We can actually look at support and weight and how the logistics of that works as far as design. At Discovery School, we have enrichment clusters, and I do architecture and engineering classes through that. But kids don't have a lot of hands-on experience with building aside from Legos. So this is going to give them something that they can actually put together and create their own designs and build, and it'll help them hopefully evolve their interest into architecture and engineering fields as they progress. The other grant that I wrote was with the intent of using it for our science lab, and I wanted it to be something that would help our school as a whole. Since we have so many children that are so precocious and they are so curious, a lot of times what we're teaching out of books and pictures, but that doesn't seem real to the children. So through the grant that I wrote for the science lab, we're going to be growing fast plants. We're going to be looking at different models of plants so that kids can actually identify the stamen and the pistil and everything through models. And it'll bring that experience to them in a real-world manner in a way that they can scaffold those thoughts and learn better and then retain that information better. So we're really excited about having more hands-on for those kids, because it's a world of difference when you're holding it in your hand and then if you're just looking at a picture.
That's so true. And I know that all the schools were represented tonight because there was at least one teacher in every school that received a grant. And Leo, you actually received one for the district. So you want to describe your grant?
Sure. It was called Mentoring Mathematical Minds, which is actually the name of the curriculum. It's written for gifted students. What we find is a lot of times they're a lot smarter than us. And so it's dangerous when we try to advance their learning when we don't have a scope and sequence or a program that teaches in a foundational way and builds on it. So this program is designed for, again, groups and talking about math, but it's in a scope and sequence way, because we are doing them a disservice if we provide curriculum or alternatives to the general education curriculum without that scope and sequence and following the steps. And they have holes later, and they get into 7th grade math, and they may know how to solve an algebraic expression, but they don't know why. So this will help us. It'll be a resource for the district. So if we have in that individualized education plan a student who really does need the math, advanced math, we now will be able to have resources for the teachers.
Fabulous. Thank you both for joining me tonight. Christy, once again, congratulations on being the TAG Teacher of the Year. It's quite an honor. Leah, thank you for all you're doing and helping move our district forward in gifted. We appreciate you watching tonight. If you have questions, please give us a call at the district office at 893-2313, or you can go on our website and hit the icon, Ask MCS. Thank you.